All right, a great afternoon once again to everyone who has joined us on today's edition of the show Scoreboard Reloaded, right on 32 FM 94.9. Let's talk about sporting stories and, of course, football stories. At the top, the headlines. The UEFA Champions League make or break for some teams. Of the teams that participated in the league phase of the UEFA Champions League, they have one more opportunity to make it into, that's the round of 16 of this year's UEFA Champions League. Remember that this is also the second edition running of the league phase format of the UEFA Champions League. And in the round of 16, we have Galatasaray set to face off against Juventus later tonight. Benfica will be up against Real Madrid. Borussia Dortmund will be up against Atlanta. Monaco would be up against Paris Saint-Germain. And for tomorrow in the UEFA Champions League as well, we would have some other teams take on each other. And that's Karabakh against Newcastle, Bodo Glimt against Inter Milan. We would also have Club Brugge against Atletico de Madrid, Olympiacos against Bayer Leverkusen. So these are the fixtures are set to go down for today and tomorrow and even next week of the UEFA Champions League playoffs qualification. That's to determine which side would be in the round of 16 of this year's UEFA Champions League. We also have that format in the UEFA Europa League as well as the Europa Conference League. But on the show this lovely afternoon, we'll talk about the UEFA Champions League, and there is one story definitely making the headlines at this point in time. It's all about Victor James Osimhen. What happened to Victor James Osimhen? There is what had transpired between himself and that's Napoli. That was in the 2023-2024 season, where, of course, he was subject to so many things with Napoli Football Club. So I read the statement out from Victor James Osimhen, and then once we're done with that, we get the thoughts of DOLAPO on the show this afternoon, and together we'll take a look at that. Well, for Victor Osimhen says, I feel sorry for Napoli fans, especially because I never spoke about what happened. Some of them even came to my house to ask for an explanation. We talked and I asked them to put themselves in my shoes. After Napoli posted that TikTok video, something definitely broke. Anyone can miss a penalty. Anyone can be mocked for it. But Napoli did it to only me, and with certain situations. I was the only victim of racist abuse, and I wanted to leave. I deleted my photos in a Napoli shirt from Instagram, and they used that opportunity to turn the fans against me. And imagine this, my daughter feels more Neapolitan than Nigerian. They said I had a fight with Spalletti, but that wasn't true. I have huge respect for him. He stayed at the training ground for months, working day and night, and made us believe we could win the title. And he helped many players reach the top level. He demanded a lot, but he gave even more in return. Some coaches develop you first as a person, then as a footballer. We had a gentleman agreement that I could leave in the summer, but the other side didn't fully keep their word. They tried to send me anywhere, treated me badly. Go here, go there. Do this, do that. I worked hard to progress in my career, and I couldn't accept that kind of treatment. I am not a puppet. Well, for Victor James Osimhen, he also went on to say that his future, he is happy in Turkey. Good afternoon once again, and welcome to the program Scoreboard Reloaded, right on 32 FM 94.9. DOLAPO joins me on the show, and with that, from Victor Osimhen, how do you feel hearing this or reading it as well for Osimhen to come out to talk after a long while from what happened in his days with Napoli Football Club?
Good afternoon, SAMIES, and good afternoon to everyone who has joined us on the show this afternoon. Well, I saw the report earlier today, and all I could just say was just shake my head. I was looking at it, reading it. I think I've read that twice or thrice now, trying to get what exactly he is trying to put out there, because this is something I think we all understand what transpired between he and Napoli 2 years ago or 3 years ago when he missed that penalty in that game. And for someone, I think I still have the video of the coconuts and all of those things Napoli posted on their TikTok accounts back then. I saved that. I still have it. If I can check my archive, I would get that video out. And at that time, I looked at it and I was asking myself, for someone who won you your first Italian Serie A title for years, because before Napoli won that title that year, they've not won the Italian Serie A for, I think, for more than 30 years. So they've not won it for good 33 years. He was there that season. He scored 26 goals to win the Italian Serie A for them, got the golden boot, scored a whole lot of goals. He and 𝐂𝐐𝐿 did the job. I understand understand, and the whole team and the coach, Luciano Spalletti at that time too. But then you look at it and you say, as out of that time, it was Victor Osimhen who did most of the job and one of those guys that made them win the league that season. But for the way he was treated as out of that time, it was so sad. And I remember after that video, I told myself it was the end of the road with Victor Osimhen and Napoli. But one thing was just that at that time, I felt like Victor Osimhen didn't handle the situation better. He could have handled it better. I understand he is human and he felt betrayed for everything he has done for them at that football club. But I felt like at that time he could have handled the situation better. You can just, they've talked about it, they apologized, they deleted the video, even though we won't forget they posted something like that. He could have just stayed calm and then wait till the end of the season and leave. Even though at the end of the season, because immediately after that he started having issue. He's claiming now that he didn't have any issue with the team, he didn't have any issue with the coach. But I remembered very well that after the coach came out to say the issue was sorted, he was seen in the video footage that dropped out some weeks after or some days after that incident happened, where he ignored his teammates
on the training ground,
at the training pitch, where he was just there he was supposed to greet them. They were trying to greet him, and he didn't even answer them. Also, some weeks after that, Victor Osimhen scored a goal where he didn't want to celebrate until his teammates made him celebrate. So he was not supposed to go out on social media to delete what is post that has to do with Napoli, because at the end of the day, these guys that posted the video is not the hierarchy at Napoli Football Club. I understand that they are in charge of the social media, but it is just a part of Napoli. It is not the guys in charge of Napoli that went to post it. It is the guys in charge of Napoli's TikTok account that posted that video at that time, because I remembered very well, it was not on their Twitter handle, it was not on their Facebook page, it was not on their Instagram page, it was only on their TikTok page, it is the guys in charge of their TikTok that posted that. And if you are to have a problem with any of these guys, it is the guys in charge of the TikTok handle. So the only reason why you could have issues with the guys in charge of Napoli is, how did the guys in charge of Napoli handle the situation? Did they sack these guys? Did they take these guys? Did they make these guys pay for what they do? But at that time, he didn't make them do anything, because the way he flared up and got angry and made everything looks like it was the guys in charge of Napoli that made them post that video was one of the reasons why things didn't turn out well. And another thing is, he had an agreement in place with the hierarchy of Napoli that he would leave. But one thing we have to be clear about here, and for footballers out there or aspiring footballers out there, is that you don't have agreements you don't take anything that has to do with agreements that is not written. It is not an agreement, because it is easily changeable. There's this thing you have to make the hierarchy sign. Make them sign to it that, okay, we have agreements in place that you'll be leaving at the end of the season. We are signing these. Let it be on the paper so you can have a way to deal with yourself. Napoli hierarchy can come out now, after he has come out with his own statement today, that they didn't have anything to do with that. And they can say, where is his evidence that they had the agreement in place? So if it was not written, he has no excuse. So you have to, and then you also have a contract with that team as of that time. Even if you have an agreement in place with mouth, in as much as it's not signed, they'll tell you there is an agreement in place which is signed, which is his contract, and he has to honor his contract. So maybe it's a bit understandable from Napoli, even though I believe what they did was not right. But then you look at it from both angles and you think Victor Osimhen also didn't handle this situation well. And this is one of the reasons why in his prime, he's playing the Turkish Super League. When his mates are in the English Premier League, his mates are in the Italian Serie A, his mates are in the Spanish La Liga. Because of the way he handled this situation is why he's currently playing in Galatasaray.
About 𝐶𝐈𝐒 for Victor James Osimhen, who represented the Super Eagles of Nigeria, 51 goals, or 35 goals rather. That's what we talk about. His career for the Super Eagles of Nigeria. But while at Napoli, he achieved quite a lot. He won the title, which definitely eluded them for over 33 years.
Goals for them.
And of course, definitely in over 100 appearances for the 𝐶𝐈𝐒. But let's move away from that and talk about that's another story from the world of football. And this actually happens to be another Nigerian, where we start straight from the third tier of European club competition, the UEFA Europa Conference League. After that move away from Getafe to Crystal Palace, I really thought Christos Uche was going to hit the break in the English Premier League. But in recent time, he has struggled for game time under that's Oliver Glasner in a depleted Crystal Palace side. And now the news is that Chthios Uche, well, he has been omitted, or his name has been omitted from the 24-man shortlist that's for the UEFA Europa Conference League, that's a playoffs game. Having made 13 appearances in the Premier League, starting only once, he also featured in 4 games in the Conference League and scoring only 1 goal.
He didn't live up to the expectation, and I'm not surprised.
He didn't live up to the expectation?
Yeah, he didn't
He
live up.
performed in the Spanish La Liga last season before making that
No,
move.
he performed 2 seasons ago. Last season, he didn't really perform before he moved to Crystal Palace. I remembered when he signed that contract. I said it here. I was sitting on this same chair where I said, Chthios Uche is not really the same Chthios Uche we saw 3 seasons ago. And I think he's still a young man. He still have a lot to do with his career. When he was coming in, with what Crystal Palace would have expected, he was coming in as the replacement for Eberechi Eze, who won them the FA Cup, won them the Community Shield, and scored a whole lot of goals. So the expectations were high for him, and I don't think he lived up to that. And also, with the way they omitted his name, it shows now that he would have limited game time. But you look at Crystal Palace as a team, they know what they are doing. Let's not put we as Nigerians into this. They had to register 3 other players instead of him. Evan Gosan, who has played very well in the UEFA Europa League this season with Aston Villa. They registered this Stan Larsen from Wolverhampton Wanderers, and who scored 2 goals in his first game for them. And they also registered
That was the
second game for them. They registered the 3rd person who they registered, who has Brendan Rodgers, who scored in the UEFA Europa League final last season. He has wealth of experience when it comes to playing in European football. He scored in the final, just like you would always say. He scored in a big competition. He scored in the final.
But he said wealth of experience.
And now he scored in the final. Compared to Chthios Uche. Compared to Uche, he has scored in the final of the UEFA Europa League and a big cup, like you would call it. So you would put it there and you call him a big player because Tottenham Hotspur is a big team for winning the UEFA Europa League, like you said. So you look at that, you put that into this consideration, and you put all of this in place, and you think they have to register their big names, the experienced players that they have. And for Chthios Uche, he needs to do better going forward this season to impress the new coach coming in next season.
Well, he has a contract left on his that's a deal at the Sherwood Park. But let's see what will become of the future of Chthios Uche. Now, let's quickly go to the big boys. That's the UEFA Champions League, where we have a game set to go down today. And, of course, like Peter mentioned this morning, the early kickoff for 6:45, Galatasaray there in Turkey against Juventus. And, of course, for the old ladies of Turin, they are hoping to bounce back from that poor performance by the officials on the field of play against Inter Milan during the course of the weekend. While for Galatasaray, Victor James Osimhen was on target. And, of course, he said they are doing so well in Turkey, but now they need to transcend that's a performance to the European scene. This is another stage for them. In the UEFA Europa League last season, I really thought Galatasaray were going to go all through to the finals. But in the round of 16, that was their bus stop in the UEFA Europa League last season. And now they have the opportunity to fight for a ticket in the round of 16.
Well, both sides were playing against each other, and for the 7th time in the UEFA Champions League. I think Galatasaray have quite a good record against Juventus in the UEFA Champions League because they've only lost once in their last 6 games against Juventus. Though the last time they played each other in the UEFA Champions League was far back in December 2013, if I'm not mistaken. I stand to be corrected, where Juventus won that game 1-0. And you look at this side from Mr. Bodo, Galatasaray have been good over the last couple of months in the European competition, because their last 11 games at home in the UEFA Europa League and in the UEFA Champions League, they've lost just 1 game, and that game they lost was against Union Saint-Gilloise in November 2023 or 2024 in the UEFA Europa League. So that's the only game they've lost at home in the UEFA competition over the last couple of months. So they've been good at home this season, and also over the last few seasons in the UEFA Champions League and the UEFA Europa League. For Juventus, I think they've been a different team entirely in Europe since Luciano Spalletti took charge of this side. Before he came in, they didn't win any of their 3 games, but then since he came in, things have changed for Juventus. They've been winning games in the UEFA Champions League. I think they won 3 games in a row in the UEFA Champions League. So they are a good side. But then going to Galatasaray, going to Istanbul to play against Galatasaray would never be easy for a team like Juventus. I understand what happened to them over the weekend. They look like a team that can score goals. They can yield these, and the likes are performing for them defensively. Kalulu also, as well, will be playing in this game after that red card over the weekend, which is still questionable. But then, for me personally, for you to go to Galatasaray to play against Galatasaray in Istanbul, the best you can pray for a team like Juventus now, the best they can pray for is a draw. And I think that is the best they can get out from this game. But personally, with the experience of the likes of Ilkay Gundogan, Victor Osimhen, who have played a whole lot of times against Juventus, Leroy Sané, and all of these guys, I feel like Juventus would not get anything from this game. I expect Galatasaray to win. But then the best thing Juve can get from here is a draw.
Well, Dolapo thinks that the best that the old ladies of Turin would get away from Italy, from Turkey, is actually a draw. But let's take a look at some of the players. Victor Osimhen, yes, like we mentioned, and now they have Dusan Vlahovic. These are the players who can actually decide the course of the game. And remember that it's a game of 2 legs. It's all about taking advantage and putting a caution to your game in the first leg of this encounter. Peradventure will see something different from the Galatasaray victory. Like Osimhen mentioned, it is a game to also test the mettle of, and that's Galatasaray on the European scene.
Oh, well, you look at it player to player, you look at the team Galatasaray have, you look at it, and you look at the team Juventus have. Dusan Vlahovic have played in the Champions League over the last years. I think he scored an hat-trick or a brace against Manchester City, and there's last year's UEFA Champions League, if I'm not mistaken. Kenan Yildiz, Leo Kweli, and the likes of players they have in this team, compared to the experience they have at Galatasaray at the moment. Victor Osimhen is experienced, maybe not experienced in the UEFA Champions League, but then he has played against Juventus quite a lot of time. Mario Icardi as well, who scored, I think, a brace or an hat-trick over the weekend. He has also played very well against Juventus while he was at Inter Milan, where he scored a whole lot of goals. He has the experience from Paris Saint-Germain as well. And then they have the likes of Ilkay Gundogan, who is a Champions League winner. He has played for both Manchester City, he has played for Barcelona, and I think he was the captain of that side that won the UEFA Champions League for Manchester City some years back, their first ever Champions League. So they have the experience of Leroy Sané as well, who has played for Man City, has played for Bayern, Lucas Torreira, the former Arsenal midfielder, who is also very good. You look at the team as a whole, they look good, and you look at that team and you look at it and it makes you think, how did some of these guys get to Galatasaray? And they've showed this season that they can beat the big boys. They defeated Liverpool this season, showed Manchester City how to play football in a way, even though Manchester City won that game, but then they've showed how good they can be. And I mentioned how good they've been at home this season as well. So I feel like with the experience they have and with the way their stadium is, I just think they would find a way to nick it and get the win tonight.
Dolapo thinks that they are truly going to get the win. All right, let's move away from that and talk about the other games set to go down later tonight. AS Monaco against Paris Saint-Germain. Of course, these are French sides, but Paris Saint-Germain would be away from home in this encounter. And quickly, that takes me to what transpired over the weekend between Paris Saint-Germain and Rennes. They lost by 2-1. Ousmane Dembele was the one who scored the consolation goal for his side in that defeat. And then the next encounter is against Monaco. But what happened is truly the head coach, that's Luis Enrique, calling that Ousmane Dembele's bluff right after the interview he granted. That was on Friday night. So remember, after that defeat, Ousmane Dembele said the team, they are not playing as a team. They are playing based on individual performance. But in the words of Ousmane Dembele, I read that for Dembele, he said that if we play as individuals, it won't work. But his manager, that's Luis Enrique, hit back at the suggestion and said the players' statements after the match are worthless, absolutely worthless. So are the coach's statements, but the players' statements are worthless. I'm not going to answer any question from a player, any response from a player. I will never allow any player to be above the club. So it is clear. I am the person responsible for the team. I will not allow any player to think he is more important than the club. Not me, not the sporting director, not the president. So these statements are worthless. They are the result of anger after a match, and I think that's clear. We have nothing to lose. Points behind that Rennes in the French Ligue 1 and this is where they stand in the UEFA Champions League as the defending champion, having the needed to play in the playoffs to be in the round of 16 of the UEFA Champions League.
Well, personally, I feel like Luis Enrique probably misunderstood what Ousmane Dembele had said in that interview, and I kind of understand the angle Ousmane Dembele is coming from, because I think last season when they won everything bar the FIFA Club World Cup that they lost, they played for the team, not for personal wins or personal gains at all. You can see it with the way they played in the UEFA Champions League and in the League Cup last season. They were, at the start of the season, they were not really good, because I remembered very well they were also playing in the playoff round. They played against the West in the playoff round last season. Not that they were really good, that they were that good, but then after they brought in 𝐃𝐈𝐒 from Napoli in January, things changed for them. But all of those players at that time, they were all playing for Paris Saint-Germain. They were all playing for the badge. But this season, it seems like it's different, because now they have a Ballon d'Or winner in their squad. They have.
Can it also be down to them playing, living their soul last season?
I don't think it's because they left their soul last season. I think it's just
remember they won everything available on plate except
the FIFA Club World Cup. I think it is all because Paris Saint-Germain and Luis Enrique failed to recruit. They failed to bring in new player. Apart from Milan Zabari that they brought in from Bournemouth and the goalkeeper 𝐃𝐈𝐒 that they brought in, they didn't bring any other person in, and the squad looked depleted. This team has been playing. They played all possible games that they could play last season. They played in every competition. They got to the final of every competition. Played all their games in the league. Played all their games in the League Cup, in the Super Cup, in the UEFA Champions League. Played all of the FIFA Club World Cup games as well. So this team is weak. But then if you had bring in players the same way they did last season when things were not going well, at the start of the season in the UEFA Champions League, they were losing games, they were not performing well. At the point in time, I was on 𝐒𝐲 saying they might probably not qualify to the Champions League next round, and they found their way qualify to the playoff round, and they were not able to go forward because. And they were after they qualified for the playoff round, they brought in 𝐃𝐈𝐒. The coach changed the way they were playing, stopped using a number 9. He used Ousmane Dembele as a false 9, used 𝐃𝐈𝐒 and used Desiree Doué or Barcola, and everything worked out well. Fabian Ruiz was really key in the middle of the park with Vitinha in the midfield last season. But all of those things are not working again this season. They are not working that well this season, because this thing is, in football, you don't do the same thing for 2 consecutive years easily. Teams would find a way to hack what you are doing. And that is what is going on with Paris Saint-Germain this season. Some teams have found a way to hack what they are doing and trying to block them from playing that same way. And Luis Enrique is a coach that is still playing the same way they did last season. You look at the way they played this season as well. Gonzalo Ramos is coming off the bench. He does not really start games just like last season. He wants to play with those attackers. And they have injuries as well. And if they had brought in new players, things would have changed. But then I think Luis Enrique right from the start is someone who likes to have a small squad. He wants to play with the guys he have. But I think going into next season, if at all he will still be there, I have a feeling Luis Enrique leave for Paris Saint-Germain at the end of this season. But if at all he will still be there, they need to bring in new players. They need to bring in more players. And then if reports are anything to go by from France that Ousmane Dembele might also be looking to leave that team at the end of the season, they might just need to reform and change some things in that team. And also we've seen reports that Barcola might also be willing to leave Paris Saint-Germain to go to Liverpool, some teams as well. So some players might leave. Paris Saint-Germain might need to go back to where they used to be and need to spend money again and probably change things in that club.
All right, Ben, Borussia Dortmund against Atlanta Football Club, but this is a side that have actually been struggling with consistency on the European scene. That's talking about Borussia Dortmund. They'll be up against Atlanta, winners of the UEFA Europa League for the 2023-2024 season. And but what do you expect from this matchup later tonight?
Oh, well, they've been good, I think, since that 2-1 win or loss to Chelsea. I think it was the match day 6 of the UEFA Champions League or something. They've been performing really well. I think they are now on the 5 or 6 games unbeaten run. I mean, Atalanta, they've been good over the last couple of weeks. And now playing against a Dortmund team that look like their defense line is more like almost everybody in their defense line is out injured at the moment. According to reports from Germany, Scotterberg didn't train with the team with the team ahead of this game tonight. So they have injuries at the back. Shehu Guirassy is still a man on form. He scored an hat-trick or 2 goals against Mainz over the weekend. I think it was on Friday when they won 4-0. So they have a good team. But with the way things are and with the experience both sides have, I would use a word again. They are both big teams if you would go by you, because Borussia Dortmund also got to the UEFA Champions League final some seasons ago, and Atalanta won the UEFA Europa League.
They are past winners, 1996 winners of the UEFA Champions
Just
League.
like you would call them, they are winners. But I don't think both sides are big teams. But with the way things are, I have a feeling this game is another one that would end in a draw, or Borussia Dortmund takes it.
All right, a repeat of the match day 8. And that's UEFA Champions League also with see Benfica at the end. Portugal face off against the Real Madrid. Jose Mourinho, of course, up against his former side, and then Alvaro Belua would be up against his former manager. But this time around, it's all about the goals. Kylian Mbappe opened to surpass Cristiano Ronaldo's record in the UEFA Champions League, and it is a long way to go. Abelua and Jose Mourinho, a man who turned the fortunes of this club side around from the early stages, and now they are playing against the big boys for a place in the round of 16 of the UEFA Champions League.
Well, simple. I feel like Real Madrid won't lose this game. I just don't think they'll lose in Portugal.
All right, DOLAPO doesn't think Real Madrid would lose in Portugal, but we'll come tomorrow to give you the results from all of these matchups later tonight. Thank you so much, everyone who has joined us. I've done this alongside DOLAPO. I am SAMIES, your sports captain. Do enjoy the rest of the day, and bye for now.